right, now we're down to what we call our meadow, and it's probably a pocket meadow. And this space is maybe 8-10 years old. And this is where it's a forest edge here, and we just had deluge of water all the time. It was really swampy. It was all just turf. You know, the prior owners would try to maintain that by mowing, and it really was quite unsightly. So we came in and decided, great spot for a meadow, right? And in the middle of it is a little vernal pool. So we came out and scooped it out a little bit. And this is a vernal pool that's fed by rain runoff. This is not a perched, does not have the geological structure underneath of what we would call a, a classic, maybe, vernal pool. So this is constructed just by scooping out the soil and then really tamping it down. And it holds water, and every year, almost every year now, because it's so quick, we'll burn this down. And of course it's all black for a week, then we get a rain, it starts to green up, and of course in the summer it's this. And you can see the cattails coming in now. That's going to dry the pond up a bit, so we might take some out. But it's very productive and very loud in the spring, as we all know how these things go. So then the little pond is the focal point or the emphasis of this space, and then of course it migrates into, over time, this green lush garden. And in here there were in the beginning high diversity of plants. It's now really found itself, and the way it found itself was through Indian grass. So now I call this my little tall grass pocket meadow, because the dominant species here now is Indian grass, which is really terrific, because part of it is I've been able to really pull back on maintaining it, and it's absolutely elegant when it's in full, up and beautiful, and the inflorescence is up, and then in the fall that beautiful color comes through here and the sun hits it. It's really quite amazing. Some of the plants though that continue to thrive in here are the indigos, some of the Helianthus, and of course you can see some of the milkweed in here. And there are other plants in here that come rambling through, and it's for me quite interesting to watch what takes precedence, what moves where. We have a black willow that's come in to the little pond. We may, extirpate that so that it's not sucking up all the water, so we can contain somewhat of an amphibian habitat. So we'll see. And then this whole area in front of those cattails, all blue flag, all wild iris. So earlier in the spring, it's really quite a show. And you can see some of the little, what do we have over here, Rudbeckia coming in. But really what's dominant now is all of the grasses. And of course in the front you see the invasives, right? You see this edge, it runs in on everything. And when you walk into the grasses inside, of course it's less and less. And this is quite a challenge. You can mow it, but you have to, you want to sacrifice an area for a period of time. You try to smother it or pull it out. It really is a challenge, and I'm thinking maybe it's a challenge we just live with it being, the meadow being good enough and not perfect, because the amount of habitat that we've now provided is a huge order compared, again, from turf, right? So in the spring, it's an amphibian habitat, just alive with all those little guys and that sound. In summer, you can see all of the, in spring and summer, you see all the pollinators flying in here. The birds coming in for nesting material, and of course insects and food for their young. And then in summer, later in summer, we start to see the change, and that's when we really start to see some color in the meadow. And that's quite interesting. And then in winter, really this is the playground of all sorts of small birds. We leave this up through the winter, so we have a structure, and you just watch the birds all over this place. And then the fox comes in and dives into the snow. And we've gotten to watch that many a time. The deer come in and nibble occasionally. I've seen fawns in here every now and then that have been dropped, but there aren't a lot of species in here that they love. And wouldn't it be great if they could just develop an appetite for the Japanese stilt grass, right, that's in here.
And so will the Indian grass outcompete?
Oh yes, the Indian grass completely outcompetes it. The Indian grass famously has very long roots, and it's a bunch grass, so it just keeps getting larger, and of course the seeds, huge seed production. And we just had, I don't know, maybe I had a dozen up above on this slope, what I started out with in the beginning, not realizing, or maybe I just didn't read that correct article, of what would happen. But that's okay. Now I use this if I'm in a more, like a public land in a community, right, where they want a meadow. I know that this provides a lot of habitat, a lot of shelter and cooling and filtering and all of those things. So I might use this in some place where the maintenance budget is, you know, fairly low. So that's what we'll do. And here, over here is a nice little opportunity to look at. So you look at this, right? We're looking at the form, we're looking at the color, we're looking at the textures, and then look at that guy right in the middle, right? A beautiful invasive Miscanthus. I had a neighbor who came in a few years ago and planted, 2 dozen upslope from here, just right next door, which of course sunk my heart. And the next year I had a dozen. The next year, even though I got those out, I had another dozen. But now I'm down to 1. And I left that standing so we can just sort of look at it. That, you know, we can train our eyes to look at the form. Maybe we don't know what it is, but we know it's different, right? So then I'm going to investigate it. So now, after this video, I will send it on its way to mulch. And that's where it will live the rest of its life.
And that is chopping it down. It's not digging it up.
No, I would dig it up if I had some plants I was going to just pop in. So that's one of the ways this meadow's come to be. It's seed and it's live plants. So if I had something to get out, we had a big, you know, we have locust trees on the edge here, and we had quite a few locust trees come in. I did dig them out. You know, we burnt it, but we also dug them out, and then I dropped other plants in. So that's what's happened here. And you can see off to the distance, there are no locust trees there. Well, there's 2, but they don't look like they lived. And burning helps manage the woodies. But it won't kill them because you can't get the fire hot enough. You know, this is a small fire. I have neighbors, and I have a woodland right next door. So really, when I prep this, there are a lot of breaks in here, so it looks like a little patchwork quilt, and then I burn a section at a time. So I'm not going to kill those woodies. But I can weaken them, and that's what I'm looking for. Also, fire generally favors grass, and that's something I learned after I realized I have a lot of Indian grass. But it's beautiful, really, it's quite beautiful. And in the evenings, because of how we manage our woodland and this area, and you can see it's a perfect exercise or lesson. Right next door is my neighbor with the same woodland that comes right over, and he takes everything out of the woodland except the trees. And now all the trees are falling down, but right now, if you come out tonight, I'm going to have fireflies all over the vertical plane and all over the horizontal plane. They're all over the meadow. It's just beautiful. And all you have to do is walk to the fence and look over and nary one. You know, it's just a simple sort of thing. I know there are some principles at play of why people feel they have to manage their woodlands in that manner, but fortunately I think we're really moving away from that for a whole host of reasons. So that's what we do down here, and we totally enjoy it. And I want to say one more thing. If you want to get some really great enjoyment out of this, is break off your your milkweed. If you have it in another garden, when it's gone into stalk and right before it pops open, and just plant those stalks in your garden. Catch a seat. When the breeze comes and they open, just watch them float through the meadow and they'll find their place. And that's how all of these, you'll see them dotted around. I didn't plant them. I planted the stalks with the dried up seed head and then it opened. And it's really fun. Okay.